You know how we do it, putting a fantasy and sports betting perspective on NFL news and happenings. So, the Cowboys announced Dak Prescott had a cleanup surgery on his non-throwing shoulder. But one topic of conversation in Indy with Cowboys Executive Vice President Stephen Jones was one of Dak's wideouts, Amari Cooper. So Cooper's under contract, but his $20 million contract becomes fully guaranteed if he's on the roster on March 20th. So cutting or trading Cooper could save the Cowboys $16 million. Now, Pearce, how would a potential cut or trade of Amari Cooper affect the Cowboys' odds or like Dak's fantasy outlook?
It's going to kill his fantasy outlook. You can't get rid of Cooper just to save some money. It would make sense if you could get rid of Cooper and there was someone else out there to get that was cheaper or equal caliber to Cooper's, but it's not there. You let him go, you run the risk of not replacing him at all, or maybe you replace him with an inferior player that's going to cost a lot. Look, Jamison Crowder is expecting $12 million. Christian Kirk is looking at a $12 million salary. So $20 million for Amari Cooper really isn't that bad of a deal. You know what you're going to get. Sure, his numbers were down a little bit last season, but some of that might have had to do with not having a running game. If you can get the running game fixed, that's their real concern. That's going to open up the receivers. That's going to help Dak's numbers. I think it's the idea like the grass is greener on the other side. You expect that you can upgrade, but there just really isn't a free agent upgrade out there. So even if you are overpaying, which you're not, you just stick with Cooper.
All right, Steve, do you agree? You just got to stick with Cooper here?
Well, the other thing is, too, is that, there's a couple other receivers on Dallas or that were on Dallas that are also going to be free agents. Michael Gallup is one of them. Noah Brown, not a big name, but he's going to be out there. Cedric Wilson, another one. So they're potentially losing a bunch of their receivers. They can't afford to also lose Cooper as well. Now, the Cowboys are one of those teams that is in cap space hell, kind of down there with the Saints. They don't have a lot of wiggle room really much at all. I mean, when the numbers are in red, usually that's bad news if you're trying to get anybody on the free agent market. So they really can't afford to make any moves to begin with. Now, if they do cut Cooper and save some of that money, sure, that does free up some. But, you really need to retain some of these guys because, like Pearce mentioned, that run game, when it wasn't when Ezekiel Elliott was on the field, wasn't exactly stellar, to say the least. So I think they got to try to retain Cooper here. He's a big part of this Dallas offense, even if the numbers didn't exactly equate to that this season.
All right, well, the offseason is a time of people putting things on social media and it making a statement. So Carson Wentz put a picture on Instagram of him working out with Colts receivers, including Michael Pittman. So his future does seem to be up in the air in Indy because of his salary and, of course, his quarterbacking. So, Steve, do you think the Colts need an upgrade at the quarterback position, or can they win with Wentz?
What are they going to win with Wentz? Wentz won them absolutely nothing this season. Take Jonathan Taylor out of that team. Pluck him right out. And tell me what the Colts would have ended up with this season. Maybe 2 or 3 wins. Wentz is not that guy. Wentz is never going to be that guy. So they absolutely need to make a change at quarterback. I kind of bring it back to the 49ers. If the game is on the line, do you trust your quarterback to go downfield and win that game? You can say no to the Colts, and you can absolutely say no to the 49ers. They need to make an upgrade at quarterback. They have some good receivers over there, but it doesn't even feel like it because of how much Jonathan Taylor dominated because they can't rely on Wentz, and then just the overall poor play by Carson Wentz. So they absolutely need to make an upgrade at quarterback this offseason.
Pearce, you in agreement? Absolutely need to make an upgrade at quarterback?
Yeah, they need to get better quarterback play. It's probably not going to come from Wentz, but the issue is not that they want to get rid of him. It's just, what are you going to do? They don't have any draft picks. They don't have any draft picks to trade. Wentz has an insane salary that no one wants, and so you have to eat that salary if you can even get someone to bite on Wentz. They're pretty much stuck with him. You look at possible places for them to trade him, there really is only one move, and this is pure galaxy brain, but it's another quarterback that's not wanted, who has a really bad salary that's hard to move. You just swap him with Sam Darnold, which sounds crazy, because Sam Darnold's been terrible as well. But you look at Sam Darnold in the limited sample size we have, he's had bad coaching, he's had bad offensive lines, he has possibly some upside. We know that Wentz doesn't have upside. There is nothing more to get from him. There's the chance that Darnold could be better if he had a good coach and a good offensive line. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? I mean, you're not going to win with Wentz. You might as well lose with Darnold and have a chance of maybe resurrecting his career.
All right, really quick before we move on, Steve, what do you think of the Darnold play?
I mean, you're just inserting one bad quarterback for another. But I mean, that's kind of where they're at right now, right? So I don't think it's a terrible play, but it's like, oh, we can replace Wentz with Darnold. You got some bigger issues going on.
Okay, well, guys, Packers reportedly preparing to have a short-term deal ready for Aaron Rodgers if he decides to return to Green Bay. So the NFL is waiting on Rodgers, but let's talk about the Packers that are returning next season. So, Pearce, how do you view Aaron Jones' fantasy potential with and then without Aaron Rodgers next year?
He should be fine, maybe possibly. I'm not really bullish on Jones at all, with A.J. Dillon emerging mainly as probably the key running back. You're going to have Jones still getting rushing attempts, but he's turning into a receiving back, which is fine, right? That works in fantasy as long as Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback. If Rodgers isn't the quarterback and we need receptions from Aaron Jones, I don't know if he's going to have that same role. Are we going to get the checkdowns? Is he going to get used in the passing game the same way? I would be really worried about that. And even best case scenario, everything stays in place. He's looking like a Jamal Williams that basically catches more passes. And being a receiving back is really game script dependent. I would much rather have the running back that's going to get the rushing attempts, which you're going to get a lot more action throughout the game as opposed to playing in catch-up mode or blowouts or whatever. So I don't really like Jones that much.
Steve, what do you think?
I agree with Pearce. I think A.J. Dillon has proven to be the better pure running back overall. If Aaron Rodgers comes back, then this is going to be another pass-heavy offense. Like, you're not going to bring Aaron Rodgers back and switch to a run game primarily at all. That's not the whole point of having Aaron Rodgers, because he can air that ball out or whatnot, get deep downfield. But it also comes down to, what are they going to do with their receivers? Like, if they don't end up having Devontae Adams for whatever reason, is that going to lead to more for Aaron Jones? But I think with Jones, I don't think we're going to see the true potential with him, with Aaron Rodgers, because this team's going to want to pass if they have Aaron Rodgers. But I agree with Pearce. I think that A.J. Dillon has been the stronger back, at least during the second half of last season. He definitely looked like the guy that should be out there more. So I think, if anything, Aaron Jones might have to watch out for A.J. Dillon, who's also a very avid card collector, and I like that.
Oh, love that about him. Fun fact, Steve. So experts say that this year's quarterback draft class isn't as strong as the last few years, but plenty of mock drafts with multiple quarterbacks going in the first round. So Steve, whether it's like via draft, trade, free agency, which team do you feel like is going to have the biggest turnaround next season with a new quarterback?
So I think when you look at the first round picks for every team, the only team that I feel like is almost guaranteed to take a quarterback has to be the Saints, right? Because, I mean, they are in, we talked about the Dallas Cowboys being tough for cap space. The Saints are in like a whole different universe. That's why Sean Payton was like, I'm done. I'm out. See you later. I'm gone. They need a quarterback, and I think they need it more than any of them. So I don't think it's going to lead to the biggest turnaround, but I think of all the teams in the first round to draft a quarterback in the first round, I think the Saints are the only team that you can really say that team needs a quarterback. There are other teams that absolutely need quarterbacks. Steelers, Falcons are some of the names that quickly come to mind, but of the situations and of the cap space, I think that is the position that the Saints need to address the most. So while I'll say that I don't think it's going to bring the biggest turnaround, I think they're almost guaranteed to take a quarterback in the first round. So I'm going to roll with the Saints in this spot.
All right, Pearce, what do we think?
No one's going to make a major turnaround. You might see a bad team win a couple more games, but the talent's just not there. Free agent market, it's not there. If you're trading, you're going to get somebody that no one really wanted, so that's not really going to turn around your team. And then draft-wise, if the experts say that this quarterback talent in the draft isn't that good, then you got to take their word for it. They're usually right. I mean, everyone knows that they missed on Brady. Great. But for the most part, all the other times, the quarterbacks, as far as being evaluated, they got it right. And sometimes, they like a guy and he doesn't work out, but very rarely are they down on a guy and then all of a sudden he explodes and turns the team around. So I'm going to take the expert's word for it and expect really a bad year for quarterbacks improving teams.